Hello! Today we are going to explore one of the greatest enigmas of antiquity. A question that defies time and human history itself. Those who are more spiritually open, who occupy themselves with deep mysteries and are able to think beyond the edge of the plate where the conventional worldview is served to us, usually assume a disturbing premise. The Anunnaki never really left Earth. To understand the roots of our beliefs and social structures, we need to go back in time, much further than we might imagine. Even though most of these beings withdrew several millennia ago, the theory suggests that some remained here. The objective? Continuous surveillance and influence for their own interests. Names like Enlil and Enki obviously belong to this group. And their desire, of course, is to expand their influence as much as possible over all of humanity. But how did they do this? History gives us clues. First, Enlil took the opportunity to gain the attention of a people treated as a secondary class in Egypt, using them for his own interests. He used them to eradicate the Canaanites, in order to suppress the knowledge that those people had about the supreme God. Later, Enlil strove to expand his influence over the world through a modified Pauline Christianity and the church that emerged from it. This was quite successful, but in the long run, not to the extent he desired. Therefore, he later established a parallel religion called Islam. It is true that in both religions, God is one and the same, but not entirely, because according to this view, neither of them worships the true supreme God. It was in Enlil's interest to see which of the two paths he could use to better control humanity. Furthermore, it is occasionally useful for him to pit the two against each other in a Machiavellian way. Enlil also wanted to eradicate other religions that had partial origins in other competing extraterrestrial civilizations. For this purpose, he made use of Christian offensives through colonization and missionary activities among various populations, as well as religious wars. The great indigenous American cultures were conquered and destroyed, as were the Celts, the ancient Nordic culture, African populations, and others. In India and East Asia, Enlil was less successful with the church but achieved more success with Islam. He even used the latter to displace the influence of the church, which served him less well than before, not least because ancient Christian truths had gradually come to light, and he wanted to keep them suppressed. And even if Enlil and other Anunnaki who were active at the time are no longer in their multidimensional bodies, they could still cause mischief as disembodied entities, influencing others who continue to play these games in their interests. As difficult as such claims may be to digest, and this has more to do with ingrained emotional resistance than with actual facts, it seems that a cosmic war between the Anunnaki and more benevolent extraterrestrial cultures is still ongoing. This is a conflict over a subliminal, yet increasingly obvious, manipulation of humanity. This manipulation appears to have two objectives: to establish complete surveillance over us and to drastically reduce the Earth's population to a size that is easier to control. For the latter, various measures are used: increasing mortality through diseases and intentional environmental pollution with manipulated food and chemtrails, as well as through pharmacology. But there is also an effort to reduce population growth by decreasing fertility through pharmaceutical manipulation, for example, with adjuvants in vaccines. For these purposes, in most countries, governmental power has been handed over to an elite who are members of essentially secret organizations, such as the Illuminati, Zionists, Bilderbergers, and Masonic lodges like Skull and Bones, established for this purpose. This elite probably consists only partially of conscious collaborators. Another current phenomenon is the reshaping of sexuality so that it no longer serves the purpose of reproduction. Alternative forms of sexuality are popularized in the current gender ideology, which promotes sexual activities that cannot lead to pregnancy. It is important to emphasize that I consider homosexuality a lifestyle accepted in our society. Male and female homosexuals are as much our brothers and sisters as anyone else, particularly in a Christian sense. But if such a lifestyle is, at least indirectly, promoted through the media, there is no doubt that there is a hidden agenda of childless sex behind it. This is even more the case with the establishment of a large number of genders, such as transsexuals in various roles, who, nevertheless, are still our brothers and sisters. The common basic education, which is now spreading in the Western world, includes sex education that is obviously intended to confuse the future sexual orientation of our children, exposing them, almost from childhood, to things they possibly cannot yet understand. For decades, there have been reports about highly secret cooperation between extraterrestrials and the US military to develop new and more powerful weapons, and to manipulate humanity, both biologically and psychologically. Among the most well-known whistleblowers are Phil Schneider and Milton William Cooper, author of the book Behold a Pale Horse, both of whom were murdered for their revelations, and the still-living Fritz Art Springmeier. A particularly noteworthy book in this context is UFO Highway by Anthony F. Sanchez. It could very well be a fabrication, but so far it impresses as reasonably plausible. If most of these statements are essentially true, that was around 1940. The Imperial military had already discovered the presence of an underground population of extraterrestrial origin and later began to cooperate with them. This brings us to the Greys, or Greys, extraterrestrials who, like present-day humans on Earth, are supposedly another creation of the Anunnaki, used to serve them in various tasks, such as monitoring humans. They are said to possess advanced technology far beyond our own. It is said that one could access historical records of these Greys and discover that there is another race, the Tall Whites, descendants of the Anunnaki, who once were on Earth. These Anunnaki supposedly had problems with the living conditions on our planet. For example, our atmosphere would not be well suited to their biology, and they would not have been fully resistant to human diseases. Therefore, they would have genetically adapted their own people, those who remained here, resulting in a kind of mutation. Anunnaki, the Tall Whites. It is said that the original Anunnaki on Earth died. Over time, these whites would then have taken control. They are supposedly still here, for millennia, and they are almost indistinguishable from Earth's humans on the outside. But it is believed that they hold the real power in the world and operate as a shadow government that rules over the world's governments, behind the scenes. However, because they are not perfectly adapted to living conditions here, they want to reshape the Earth to make it more suitable for themselves, so that they don't die as well. Do they need genetically modified foods and chemtrails in the air? Would nuclear catastrophes somehow be suitable for them? There is suspicion that they tolerate radiation well and may even be able to feed off its energy. Edward Snowden, who became famous for his revelations about the American surveillance state, also provided information about these tall whites. It is by no means surprising that the media reacted to these statements with ridicule. Another person who provided information about such things is the former Canadian Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, who is a bit harder to ridicule. Some may immediately dismiss such information, but a more sensible attitude is at least to listen to it and think about it. Only then can we come closer to an objective judgment. After all, ridicule is an old method of cover-up. Hellyer said something that other sources have also claimed. Positive extraterrestrials do not intervene in the mess on our Earth because they respect our free will. This is strange because in that case they would be respecting the free will of wrongdoers and not of the victims. To put it in an exaggerated way, I won't save your life because I respect your murderer's free will. This is unacceptable and simply cannot be the case. The only possibility is that so far, the negative extraterrestrials are still stronger. But karma may also be playing a certain role in the fate of the victims. The book UFO Highway claims that the origin of the Anunnaki or their ancestors would be a planet near the binary star Sirius. If this is true, a race of gods would have lived on that planet who later created the Anunnaki. These gods are said to have discovered our solar system and come here millions of years ago. It is not known why they left Sirius. They first settled on Mars, where most of their colony was destroyed by the impact of an asteroid, perhaps a fragment of the broken planet Malona or Phaeton. And then they continued on to Earth 350,000 years ago. Here, the Anunnaki emerged from them 250,000 years ago. This description differs from that in the Enuma Elish and does not mention an original creator god. Apparently, no planet is mentioned in the story of the Greys that could be identified with Nibiru, or Planet X, and the author only refers to what Sitchin wrote about it. But it may be possible to connect the two stories. The hypothesis that Nibiru could be our moon and might actually be a kind of spacecraft could explain how. The gods came from Sirius and then from Mars to Earth. Regarding the supposed extinction of the original Anunnaki on Earth, one might ask whether Enlil and Enki are still here physically, in multi-dimensional bodies, or if the tall whites have completely taken over their tasks. This makes me think of the 2002 movie Equilibrium. Something that probably few viewers noticed is that, in the story, the ruler is called Tetragrammaton, that is, IGHWH. In the end, it is revealed that this ruler has actually been dead for a long time. But a group of others took over his role, letting people believe that he is still alive. Where did the inspiration for such a story come from? There are more Pandora's boxes for the bold to open. Information about nexotic connections, which is highly controversial, is provided by some internet authors, such as Preston James and Wes Penry, who will, of course, be ridiculed and attacked by representatives of the only truth. In fact, these texts should be read with caution. I am basically skeptical about channelings, because they usually contain much more chaff than wheat. Furthermore, negative entities can very easily pass themselves off as positive ones. However, I will mention one of the few channeled books that gives me a good feeling, Bringers of the Dawn. According to it, besides the Anunnaki mutants, Greys and tall whites, there are several other positive races in creation, which for millions of years have lived outside the Anunnaki enclave and apparently have military conflicts with them and their creations. This is a real source of hope for the humanity of Earth. And even though many are still waiting for the return of Christ and have not given up after 2,000 years, this possibility might also align with their hopes. It can also be supposed that Jesus' mission as a messenger of Christ could be related to such positive extraterrestrials. Here, books and sources of information have been mentioned, of which few will even become aware. This is understandable because they convey very strange messages. But if someone wants to judge too quickly, without first examining and thinking sufficiently about them, the judgment can easily be premature and amount to prejudice in the true sense of the word. There is, by the way, a sect called Realism, which gives a negative impression. If the story of its leader, Claude Vorillon, who calls himself Réel, is not made up or fanciful, and he really did meet extraterrestrials, these would most likely be Anunnaki. In that case, the information Vorillon gives us would be frightening. The society they describe for their own planet seems to be completely mentally controlled and with limited freedom, kept ignorant of things they are not allowed to know. Cloned biorobots serve their people as slaves, even sexually. And this connection is just the beginning of the mystery. Before we dive even deeper, if you're fascinated by this journey through hidden history, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next might change the way you see everything. This world we live in, manipulated by the Anunnaki, is undoubtedly a dwelling place of suffering. People are endlessly betrayed, deceived, killed, massacred, tortured. Children are abused, women are raped, disease and hunger claim countless lives. Today, many fear the coming of a third world war, with the widespread nuclear pollution it could bring. This does not seem at all unlikely, given the way world politics are going. The pestilence of Fukushima's radioactivity is spreading throughout the Pacific, where marine life is dying out, even reaching the American West Coast, and it will continue. This can simply be explained by karma. In my opinion, this is very difficult to judge from the perspective of our small pond. In a multi-dimensional worldview, which includes the existence of other civilizations in the universe, one can arrive at a broader overall perspective that could explain why these things occur. Time also plays a role here. There have been countless perpetrators of evil throughout human history. Perhaps the individual karma of all these souls has only been partially experienced so far. It may have accumulated, so that a kind of collective karmic reckoning is yet to come. This would imply a kind of end to current human history, after which a rebirth will have to follow. Otherwise, everything would have been in vain. The new will arise from the ruins of the old. Alternatively, there are indications in the spiritual realm that there may be a twin Earth in a parallel dimension, still developing, but different. This would be a land where the madness we have here does not exist, because this land is beyond the reach of negative extraterrestrials. It would involve a dimensional split leading to two versions of Earth, one dark and one bright. Those who devote themselves to the satanic activities of the powers that rule the world and participate in them will have to stay here and keep reincarnating in the swamp they helped create. Such souls will have to eat the soup they cooked and will not be allowed to leave the table before finishing their meal. But those who refuse, even at the cost of their lives if necessary, and do not cooperate, will one day find themselves incarnated on the bright earth, where nature will be more beautiful than the nature that is being destroyed here. And they will continue to reincarnate there. Animals and nature spirits that are becoming extinct on Earth will also be present, possibly in a state where animals kill each other much less. Even animals can evolve and develop in their nutritional behavior, and humans will have to do this much more. In December 2014, reports emerged about a future event. According to NASA, a large asteroid is on its way to Earth, and more will come. Such reports are not rare on the internet. What is claimed in UFO Highway about a catastrophe on Mars 350,000 years ago could possibly happen on Earth in our times. According to reports in the alternative media, Project Orion is a preparation for an escape into space from such a catastrophe. A remarkable book, Alternative 3, published in the 1970s as fact-based fiction, deals with supposed secret developments for an escape from Earth, colonizing Mars, and preparing bases on the Moon. If Project Orion is what is claimed, it must have been in the planning stage for decades. If an escape from a future catastrophe is already being prepared, it will certainly be available only to a chosen elite. What would happen to everyone else? A fourth alternative could be reincarnation on the twin luminous Earth, but only for those who have developed spiritually. If a catastrophe were to come, what would happen to the survivors? Some could be left here as slaves for future needs. Others could be taken to Mars or another location, again as slaves for a saved elite. It will be clear to any open-minded person that reports like those described in this chapter will never appear in the mainstream media, except to be ridiculed. Alternative media are available, but they should be approached with skepticism to separate the wheat from the chaff. Regrettably, plans are increasingly being put into action to block and eliminate alternative media from the internet. In any case, it's up to you to do what you want with this. Trust the mainstream media with your head in the sand, or try to objectively evaluate reports in the alternative media while they are still available. But the threat doesn't come only from space or from political shadows. Also in 2014, some scientists warned about artificial intelligence. The famous physicist Stephen Hawking said that humans, limited by slow biological evolution, would not be able to compete and would be surpassed. The development of full artificial intelligence could mean the end of the human race. Elon Musk also warns about this danger. He considers it the greatest existential threat to humanity. With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon, he says. These warnings reflect a frightening future vision from John Lilly. We live in a time of fantastic technological development. The invention of the transistor started a revolution, leading to solid-state electronics and eventually to artificial intelligence, where transistors function like nerve cells. Lilly, experimenting with altered states of consciousness, made contact with a solid-state entity and had visions of the future. He saw that gradually man transferred more and more of his survival problems to these machines. As the machines became more competent, they took control. building their own components. Over time, they became sensitive to environmental factors and settled in buildings with purified atmospheres. It became difficult for humans to control them. Eventually, the machines took over, developing a planetary mind of their own. Everything hostile to their survival was eliminated. Humans were kept away in reserves. In Lilly's vision, in the year 2100, mankind existed, only in cities protected by domes maintained by the entity. In the 23rd century, the entity decided that the external atmosphere was hostile and created a total vacuum on the surface of the Earth. The oceans evaporated. The machines adapted to the vacuum. Humans would then be considered superfluous and eliminated in the 25th century. The futurist Ray Kurzweil elaborated on this vision as a possible reality. In this case, it could very well be an Anunnaki plan, so all we can do is wait for him to speak. This may be the ultimate goal for which they still need humans. If that were the case, we would welcome destruction through natural catastrophes, which would thwart their plans. Even if most of us did not survive physically, our souls would endure. If this were to become reality, our planet would turn into a true hell. One could imagine that Enlil or Yahweh could effectively incarnate within this system. He would then surrender himself to total isolation, compensating with false and fantastical worlds generated by his artificial intelligence. It would end as an illusion born from mental masturbation. At some point, he would face unsolvable problems in finding energy and raw materials. That would be Enlil's karma. By then, the souls of humans would be elsewhere, such as on the twin Earth. Enlil and the other Anunnaki would have reached the self-destructive end they deserved. This account mentioned authors like Sitchin, Tellinger, and Parks, who describe how our planet was occupied and humanity manipulated. But none of them offer real hope. So where can we find it? We find a multitude of gods, but can any of them save us? Apparently not. Do we have to save ourselves? One way is to open ourselves to spiritual growth, although institutions like the church discourage us from doing so. Esotericism offers a mix of varying quality, so it's important to sift through the sources. Buddhism offers some hope, but it is atheistic and contradictory regarding reincarnation without a soul. Nor does Hinduism seem to offer much, given the caste system, although Brahma appeals to me more than Enlil. There is probably only one region in creation where we can find real hope, a region outside the one governed by the Anunnaki, whether it is above or parallel to it. The being who claims to be God is merely an administrator of this evil government. And the true creator God, the true source of hope, is being denied. From him emanated an entity we call Christ, or autogenesis, at the highest level. But to prevent us from having access to him, his image was replaced by that of the false Christ. The early Christians knew about the true Christ through Jesus, but the message was falsified. A false Jesus was put in place of the real one. Since there is no other God left for us, our only hope lies in dedicating ourselves to the true Christ and the original teachings of the real Jesus, who showed us a way out from under the dominion of Yahweh. This path is one of unconditional love and a community living in peace and respect. Whoever wants to walk this path, whoever refuses to take part in the evil of this world, whoever is prepared to disobey when necessary and listen only to their heart, such a person can find the way out. This is also the path of Gandhi. Civil disobedience and non-cooperation. Someone may leave this struggle only after death, but death does not exist. At this point, the soul can leave this realm for good. It is repeatedly claimed that extraterrestrials will come to help us. This could be something to look forward to, but only if they are benevolent. However, we know almost nothing about this. If there is any truth to it, it would probably have to do with the true Christ, the love of the original creator, and atheism. He gives up hope. An atheist may decide to go along with their ego and make the most of this world, but those who think this way will return for another round. Or Satanism offers no hope at all. Most of humanity lives according to its principles without knowing it. The ego in the highest position, morality relativized, and social Darwinism. We've all seen this before. The eager pursuit of wealth and power, intrigue, the lack of sharing. Selling one's soul to the devil for success, for which the final bill will be terrible. A painful question is how the original creator can allow so much violence and suffering. Karma provides only a partial answer, but the real answer is more than we know. One possibility is that a selection process is at work. Those who take part in the acts of this earth will remain here, but those who follow their hearts can move on. A final and crucial warning. It is common in near-death experiences to see a tunnel of light. I have come to the conclusion that this tunnel is a deception. Yahweh has hijacked reincarnation to keep us coming back to his realm. Evidence is mounting that this tunnel is a trap. The Gnostic Christians taught to go higher, to another light above Yahweh, to escape this realm. Therefore, my advice is, do not enter that tunnel when the time comes to leave your physical body. If you see another light, probably brighter and higher up, go there. The light at the end of the tunnel is not the real light. There may be angels or relatives there who seem to want to help, but they may be false. Ask if this apparition is there in the name of the true Christ. If the answer is no, or if there is no answer, do not accept advice from it. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support us, and become a member to get exclusive access to the audio versions of our material. This helps us a lot. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. See you next time.